Hi, we're here this morning with Kari Steele. She is the Clinical Programs Manager at Metagenics. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. So we're going to chat about turmeric this morning because every man and his dog is out but they're buying it. So let's talk to them about why they're doing it and what it does in the body and how it affects our moods.
Great. Turmeric is huge. I think in the consumer market and the research market, it's gone from 1990, there was probably a couple of papers done on it, and last year more than 3 every day.
Right.
So huge amount of research and huge amount of consumer need.
So doctors saying that there's no research out there, they're just not looking.
They're not looking, yes, and with 3 papers, in good journals published every day, there's lots and lots of research on turmeric. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the thing that's exciting you most at the moment?
I think one of the areas that I'm most interested in is turmeric has traditionally been used as an anti-inflammatory,
right?
And people use it for things like osteoarthritis. But one of the areas that it's targeting is neurological conditions like depression, and even in animal studies, which haven't gone to humans yet, but autistic behaviours.
Right.
Yeah. So
actually, some people might be surprised to hear depression as being considered a neurological condition. Most people just think of it as bad moods. Inability to get out of bed. So there is actually a neurological component to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing as well. When we think of mood disorders, a lot of people are thinking of the chemical imbalance.
Right.
But if it was just as simple as having a low serotonin level, the treatment would be quite simple.
Right.
So now what they're looking at is factors that actually cause low serotonin.
Right.
One of them being inflammation. Because
antidepressants, the stats aren't great.
No.
12-month use, it's sort of like 3 to 7%.
Yeah. It's about 60 to 80% of people do not get effective reduction or complete resolution of symptoms.
Right.
And that's a huge amount of people when depression is, or even not depression, but anxiety and worries are affecting 25% of Australians. It's the second largest use of antidepressants in the world.
Okay. Now, when we're talking turmeric, people out there are getting all sorts of things mixed up with what we're talking about today. So yes. Could you talk about what we're talking about?
Okay. So turmeric is a herb. And, it's a root actually. And turmeric is made up of about 60-70% starches and fibres, like most herbs.
Right.
But then there's active constituents. So these are the areas or the substances that actually give you a health benefit.
Right.
And those substances only make up a small amount of turmeric. So we have about maybe 3 to 7% essential oils and 2 to 6% curcuminoids.
Right.
Now, curcuminoids, this is where people get confused because curcuminoids actually contain 3 components. One is curcumin, which is what makes your curry yellow. So
right.
it's actually the colour. It as one of its components, but it also has anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. So looking at particular types of extracts is important as well.
So people might be buying something on the shelf and it might not be giving them the health benefit they're after.
Absolutely. So one of the big components is looking at dose, but also the type of extract, because you need to take a lot of turmeric because it's not absorbed well in the body. It's like giving a baby, trying to feed a baby that doesn't want to be fed.
Yes.
It goes over the bib, it goes on the floor, it goes everywhere but where you want it to go. And a lot of nutritional supplements are like that, but turmeric is particularly like that. So getting those curcuminoids in to the cell is very, very hard. So the dosage has to be really high, about 25 grams.
Right. Yeah. Because people are often talking about, I have clients come in and they say, I'm taking it with black pepper and I'm doing this and I'm doing that.
Yes, and that can actually be more bioavailable. So black pepper has been shown to increase the bioavailability, so the amount that's absorbed and used. One of the other most researched ones is BCM95.
Right. So it's a type of turmeric?
It's a type, yeah. So the process of manufacturing a BCM95 turmeric is they remove that starch and fibre and proteins. They concentrate up the curcuminoids to 95%. Wow. And the rest of it is the resins and the volatile oils. And the volatile oils are what give you the nice aroma, but also have been shown to increase absorption and have an anti-inflammatory effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So back to the moods then. So they're finding what effects in depression?
So there was a study, and there's been a couple of studies, actually 7 human clinical studies, as well as a lot of animal studies. And there was a particular one in 2014, Dr. Adrian Lopresti did in a group of about 60 people, and he looked at it from BCM 95 versus a placebo group, and found a really positive effect in terms of the curcumin.
Right.
Yeah, and this wasn't straight away. So what we need to remember is that it doesn't, because of that absorption issue often, and also because in neurological depression, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, when you look at clinical studies, often for the first 4 weeks you won't get an impact compared to placebo.
Yes.
So what they found is the first 4 weeks weren't that different, but then after that 4 weeks to 8 weeks, it was substantially different. What people were getting in terms of the clinical effect.
Is that possibly because so many people are simply inflamed, so the first 4 weeks was simply sopping up some of that inflammatory...
Yes, that could be a reason. I think there's probably that aspect, and also just a placebo effect.
Okay.
People want to get a benefit, so they might feel better, and that's a clinical effect as well.
Right.
But then after a little bit of time, that tapers off.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you did mention autism.
Yes, so no human studies as such, but they have actually developed an animal model, which is quite interesting. And they basically use mice, and they inject them with a certain drug that gives them autistic behavioural traits.
Right.
And they've used curcumin in this, and they found a really great benefit. So it's being looked at across the board, and I think with bioavailability, yes, is a really important point, but now the areas are looking more at, even if it's not absorbed, what benefit do these polyphenols have on the microbiome?
Yeah, so I'm thinking if it's not absorbed, it's still having an effect on the gut, and that gut-brain connection is massive.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a big area that they're looking at now in terms of research, because they've found that with green tea, with cocoa, that they aren't very well absorbed, but they're still having these great effects, and you can see that in the research. And the same, there was a recent study this year, again, on the BCM 95 and saffron in a low dose, high dose, and a combination compared to placebo in the depression.
Right.
So, and this was major depression. The people that were getting the results might have had it for 10 years or more. So that's the people, they might be inflamed, and they call it atypical depression.
Yes.
But it's actually the most typical. It's about 50-60%. And it's those symptoms of low mood, loss of energy, lots of sleep, weight gain. So those are the people that particularly have that inflammation that tended, not statistically, but trended to actually get better effects.
Okay. Yeah. And what other studies have been done on other conditions? So obviously we're talking, so depression. Yeah. Has anything been done on anxiety, which, like you say, is massive? Yeah,
that's a really good point, because what they found in this most recent study is that the combination, particularly with saffron, but also the turmeric, had more of an effect on the anxiety. Yeah. And that's because when we look at stress in the body and inflammation, it actually changes a part in our brain, the hippocampus. It can actually reduce the volume, and that can lead to more anxiety as well.
So the hippocampus shrinks?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So it's kind of that thing of, and that creates that inflammation, and it's also, doing little things like getting people to think about what they enjoy, and doing that sort of aspect, because when they're sitting there and they're worrying about their worries, that actually increases inflammation, and that's been clinically studied as well.
When they think about their worries.
When they are ruminating on things, it actually increases inflammation. So there's lots and lots of things that people can do on a practical level. Getting enough sleep, eating a good diet, low inflammation food. So, not having all those saturated fats, but having, the good fish and the Mediterranean type diet is really important. But enjoying what they do, enjoying their life,
And that's often one of the things I say to my clients when, because I do kinesiology, so when certain nutrients show up, I will often say, so are you finding it harder to enjoy things you normally enjoy at the moment? Yeah. And they're fine once they get going, with what they enjoy, but quite often getting that motivation is really challenging for them. Yeah. It's not a great way to live.
No, it's not. And I think I don't know if you find it in clinical practice, but I always hear, I don't have enough time. Yeah. And it's creating that time, and just little bits of time. It can be 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and a couple of times a day. Yeah. That makes a huge impact on people's lives, and particularly mums.
Yeah.
You know.
We might take a break there. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you.